Right, hello everyone. Now we're going to look at the biotic factors and how they can also affect the population sizes in the environment, in an ecosystem, which can also have a big consequence. Okay, so what are all the biotic factors that can actually affect the population sizes, do you think? Yes. For example, when the COVID-19 happened, it was a new pathogen in the community, wasn't it? So we're going to say new predators, or it could be new pathogens as well. Okay, so we're going to say new pathogens or new predators. It could also be because of the competition in between the species. Okay, so it's not just the fight between predator prey. It could also be because of the competition, and competition, as you know, is basically for food, isn't it? It could also be for other reasons, such as you know, other than food, it could be shelter or it could be mates. Okay, so these are all the factors for which the animals, which are basically the biotic factors, can also affect the population sizes of other organisms, which in turn can have a knock on effect on the interdependence, which is basically the stable community which we talked about. Okay, so that can have a knock on effect because of these biotic factors, right? Now, following this, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is adaptation. So, which is why let it be plants or animals, they are adapted in a way so that they can survive, right? So, the end of the day, the whole idea is how they can adapt themselves so they can survive better, right? So, there are three types of adaptations. So, we're going to say structural adaptations, we're going to say behavioral, and it can also be functional adaptations. Okay, so structural, when we talk about structural adaptations, we mean, for example, think of the beaks of a bird. Okay, so the structure of the beak is different for each bird depending on what it prefers to eat, and it's adapted in a way so it can actually eat the things that it wants to. It could also be the fur. For example, a white fur is also a structural adaptation, so it can camouflage in snow so that it cannot be caught by the predators, isn't it? So it's basically an adaptation from biotic factors. Does that make sense? You'll have to link these ideas up, okay? So it's basically an adaptation. So you can think of more examples. For example, animals that live in cold places like whales, they have a thick layer of fat under their skin. Okay. For example, camels, they have a thin layer of fat so that they can actually increase the water retention, all of those things. Now we're going to move on to the behavioral adaptations. These are the ways that organisms behave. Okay, so it's not some structure, so do not get confused with that. So it's about how the organisms behave. Okay, for example, you might have seen some birds, they migrate to a different place during mating period, right? So based on, so if it's too hot or too cold, they just migrate. Okay, so they migrate to a warmer temperatures. They migrate to a warmer temperatures so that they can survive. Okay, and during the winter, to avoid the problems of living condition, to avoid the problems of the conditions, they just basically migrate. Right, next one is functional adaptations. So what do you think could be the functional adaptations? So these are the things that go on inside an organism's body that can be related to processes. Okay, like for example, reproduction and metabolism. So desert animals, they conserve the water by, how do they conserve? By producing very little sweat slash urine in order to conserve the water. Okay, so these are one or two examples, okay, which you can remember. The other one is the brown bears, they hibernate over winter, and when they do so, what basically is happening is, this could be a very good exam question, you should remember, they are lowering their metabolism, which is a process, isn't it? You need to understand, you should be able to relate it. So the two processes we're talking about is metabolism and reproduction. So when they lower the metabolism, they're basically conserving the energy. Okay, so they don't have to hunt when there's not much food around and everything. Okay, because it's winter, they can't actually hunt and they don't want to get tired and use up all those. So these are few examples that you can easily remember. Okay, make sure you always relate things. Okay, how biotic factors can affect the population sizes and how then the plants or and the animals have adapted themselves based on structural, behavioral and functional adaptations. Okay, thank you.